So I thought I would start doing a how to be a band or how to start a band and how to manage a band videos. As over the years, people have asked me, how do we keep Kaine going for so long, and what do you do essentially? So I'll make this clear from the start. This isn't about becoming famous or rich. This is just about making a functional band. This advice and experience may be relevant to rock and metal. It probably is applicable to all genres of music. Essentially, the point of these videos is to get you to a point where your band is able to play gigs, rehearse regularly, and record music. So this is the very basic stuff you're going to have to do to make that happen. So the first thing is finding musicians, which is probably the most challenging part of being in a band or trying to create a band. So back in the day, we had something called Join My Band, which still exists. And the advantage of that is you can search or advertise for musicians by county. And while that is helpful, it's a bit old now and it's a bit hit and miss. You might find some people on there. You probably won't find that many people on there that are still active, to be honest. Facebook is another platform that people use to find musicians, and there are loads of groups on there. But again, much like with Join My Band, it's old hat now. If you're in your 20s or younger, you're probably not going to want to use that at all because it's, dinosaur technology. So you'll want a more direct way of finding musicians. And I've got to be honest with you, the best way to find musicians and singers is to go to local gigs. Almost all the musicians worth their salt local to you are at the local gigs. If they're attending gigs that are similar to the bands that you like, they're probably musicians who can play the types of music that you want to play, and those are the people you want to network with. It's more often than not that most of the local musicians are in the audience anyway. And then maybe between projects, one of their last bands may have split up and they're already engaged with the local scene. And these are people that will be quite useful to you. Now, if you find going to local gigs challenging, then maybe the band thing isn't for you. You have to get over that hurdle of actually going out and supporting the scene in some way, introducing yourself so you can see what is available in terms of venues, what promoters are working locally, what bands in your area are active and are playing similar sounds to you. By just introducing yourself to those bands, they probably know people who can be in your band who are looking for bands themselves. And of course, down the line, you may even be able to gig with them. So by sort of having an attitude of not going to local gigs and sort of staying away and doing everything online, you're probably not going to achieve what you want to achieve. So my best advice in this regard is to do a little research, find out what venues are near you, find out the bands that are playing similar music to you. It doesn't have to be exact, just needs to be similar, and start attending their shows and get a feel for the local scene. Introduce yourself to the promoter, introduce yourself to the musicians, and see what's happening. One word of warning: when you're going to local shows, don't recruit from other people's bands. Try not to recruit musicians who are in multiple projects because they're not going to have time for you. It's as simple as that. Who definitely know people who are looking for bands and know other musicians. So it's a good first step to do. It's much better than doing anything online, and it will link you to people who are already active, who are willing to engage, who are already attending local shows. So they've already overcome that first hurdle. When you first start a band, you don't all have to be brilliant musicians. Just find the right people. Find 4 or 5 good people who you know you can work with, who are going to be reliable, who are team players, who are honest and are interested in doing this for all the right reasons. If you can find that, that's more important than having the best guitarist, the best vocalist, the best bass player, the best drummer, keyboardist, whatever. Because at the end of the day, you can be the greatest musician in the world. If you don't have a work ethic and you're not interested, it doesn't matter. You need people that are going to show up. And of course, once you get your band together for the first time, remember the basics, make sure your equipment works and stay in tune. So let's say you found your 4 or 5 people you want to start a band with. The next thing is to decide on a name, possibly a logo, and then in the future, a band image. Now, names can cause arguments. I wouldn't get too hung up on that element. What I will say is, if you look at a gig poster or a social advertisement for an event, make sure your band name ties into how you might sound, because people will read it and know how you sound just by reading it without seeing your band before or knowing your music. And that's really important, because a lot of the time you just see 100 band logos and names. It doesn't mean anything on these posters or these social promotions. So it's important to make it as easy as possible for people to understand what you are, how you sound, and make sure your band name and logo reflect that. And it goes the same with your image. Image is something you can work on along the lines. You don't have to go out the gates with a brilliant gimmick or anything like that. But think about the musicians that you like and the bands that you like and what they appeared as, or what they appeared like in their early days when they were first getting started. What was the gimmick? Were they dressed in a uniform style? Was it very relaxed? And was it a gimmick? Was it like a Slipknot or a Ghost? They all have a unique feature that people, when they see it, they know what it sounds like. They know what it's going to be about. Thrash bands, wear jeans and sleeveless shirts. Iron Maiden, obviously, that's another one with sleeveless shirts and black jeans. They all have an image. It's all cohesive. So it's important to get that right. But that's something for down the lines. But I will say, if you do want to be a successful musician and you want a career in music, it's vain, but get in shape, because the big guns want to see a band that looks great on stage as well as sounding great on stage. So that might not be for you. You might want a more relaxed approach. But if you do want to make a career in music, get in shape, look good, sound good, and that will make that part a lot easier. But that's for much further down the line. But just get an idea about it at this stage. Look at the bands that you're trying to emulate or inspired by, see what they've done with their image, and put your own spin on it. That's the easiest thing to do. The next important thing about starting a band, so probably even before you found your 4 or 5, maybe even 6 band members that you need to start, is the mentality. You as a musician are going to have to throw your ego in the bin. You need to remind yourself you're not the greatest at what you do. There's a million of you in the world. You're replaceable, you're expendable. That's not to say you aren't good, but you just need to have that mentality of, right, put the ego in the bin, because you're going to have to work with people. Now, when you're recruiting, going back to point 1 about finding people, every band ever has had to deal with piss takers. Now, what are piss takers? I mean, it's fairly self-explanatory, but these are people who say they're going to commit to a jam, a rehearsal, or even a gig, and they almost will always have an excuse not to show up or do it. And it will keep going round in circles, and they will never commit. So if there's any hint of, oh, I can't do this, or I don't want to do this, or they can't be bothered to turn up to a jam, if they can't be bothered to learn the songs, if you've written any songs ahead of your first jam or rehearsal, they're probably never going to do it, and it's never going to change. A lot of people love the idea of being in a band, they love the idea of being a musician, but they don't want to put the work in. It is just about the idea for them. And as soon as you get that hint that they're like that, move on. Don't try and salvage it. It doesn't matter if you've heard them playing, they sound great. They're never going to commit. If they can't be bothered to turn up to a jam, and they can't be bothered to routinely show up to rehearsals, they're never going to. And they're going to let you down on gigs, and they're going to let you down on recording, and it's just going to keep going on and be a problem persistently. We've all been through it with people over the years. It's not unique to you or your band, but as somebody with almost 20 years experience doing this now, just knock it on the head as soon as possible, because it's not going to help you long term. Now, another one that's going to make me seem really uncool, but it's the hard, honest truth. People who drink and use drugs in bands. Well, you can't have it. You just simply can't have it. It's not the 80s anymore. If they're more interested in getting pissed and more interested in getting high, they're going to do so much reputational damage to you long term, it's not going to be worth having them in the band. They're going to miss rehearsals, they're going to play inebriated or under the influence. They could even drive to a rehearsal or a gig and risk other people in that state. And when they play, they might think they're the greatest musician of all time while they're playing in that state, but they often aren't. It's often an absolute shit show, and it looks terrible, it sounds terrible. If a venue suspects a member of using drugs in their venue, bearing in mind they'll lose their license if this is discovered, they will kick you out, you will get blacklisted, and that will be game over for your band. So if anyone is more interested in partying, getting drunk, getting high, you don't want them in the band. And it's not the 80s anymore, and venues, promoters are not interested in cosplay 80s rock stars. They are professional organizations who need people to turn up completely clean and sober and to play their set and be professional about it. So if that's what these people are into and they want to get into music, it's probably best they stay in the audience and don't join a band, frankly. With that in mind, you are going to have to make hard decisions, whether someone is more interested in partying or anything else, or not turning up to rehearsals. At times you're going to have to just get rid of them, and as tough as that sounds, you might even like them as a person, which makes it even harder, but we've all had to do it. If they're causing arguments, if there's a conflict, someone has to go. And it's just a case of saying, look, I'm really sorry, but it's not going to work out. We wish you well with your future endeavors, and move on. It's better to find someone else at that stage than to try and continue in that state, because it never works out. They don't change. It just falls apart. And if you spent months or even years putting a band together and they're going to derail it in that way, it's not worth having them on board, because all your hard work will be for nothing. So the next important thing is teamwork. You need to be a team player. You've got to be able to work with people to be in a band. That means you're going to have to learn their songs. You're going to have to understand that they might not be able to play your songs exactly how you like them played. Every musician is different. Everyone has a different playing style. You're going to need to work together as a team to put this project together, to put your music together, and you can't have any egos. Okay, you've got to have someone being, directive and saying, look, we need to get this done. That's fair enough, but how it's done, as long as it's done well, it shouldn't matter. And having ideas above your station that what you've written is the greatest thing of all time and it must be played and must be done exactly the way you've set out, you're probably not going to have many people work with you for very long if that's the attitude you take. But if you take an attitude of this is what I've written and they learn it and it's good and it's maybe in their style, and likewise you're going to have to learn songs that they've written and it might not be entirely to your taste, but you can put your own spin on it, and they've got to be able to collaborate with you also. Teamwork is so important, which is going back to my first point. It's better to have 4 or 5 people in your band you actually get on with rather than the best musicians or the best singer, because if you don't have that, there's going to be conflict constantly, and that conflict will derail the band. You won't even get out of the gates. You might play 1-2 gigs, you'll fall out, and that will be that. So you need to have a good team, and you need to be able to collaborate, and you need to be able to work together, because at the end of the day, if you can't do any of those things, then you're not going to get it out. You're not going to get out of the gate. It's just not going to work for you. Now I'm going to sound like a boring old man again here, but rehearsals are so important. You need to set a day, at least one day a week, and for about 3 hours where you rehearse every week. And to begin with, you're going to want to rehearse for a 25-minute, 30-minute set, and you need to keep practicing that until you're perfect with it and you learn all the ins and outs. One thing I might suggest is to record it, whether via a phone or a video camera or even just a microphone, so you can hear any mistakes that are happening and talk about them and iron those out before you even get to a gig. If you hammer the same 5 or 6 songs over and over every week, you will get great at them. So when it comes to gigging, or when you are gigging regularly, you will be perfect. And there's a reason for that. It's because gigging situations aren't always ideal. You're going to have to play in many different venues with many different sound setups. So the more you know your material, the easier that will be for you. So you need to commit 1 day a week, 3 hours, you turn up and you rehearse. And that's not about laughing and joking. It's not about drinking or doing anything else. That's about playing your music for that 3 hours, because it's going to cost you anything from 35, 40 to 50 pounds a week to do that. And you don't want to waste it. You want to be able to say, okay, we're doing these 5, 6 songs. That's going to be our initial set. And of course, once you've got those 5 or 6 songs down, you only have to learn 4 or 5 more before you've got an hour and you can even headline. So it's that initial stage. Get good with what you've already written, hone it, learn it, and then of course when you come to recording it, you'll know it inside out as well, which will mean that process is a much easier thing to do. Now, something I've been asked a lot about over the years is finding gigs. Now, if you've done the first step correctly, you've networked, you've gone out to local gigs, you already know the venues and you already know the local bands. So you can ask the venues that you know, who are aware of you, you've been attending their shows, and the local bands, can I support you? Can I open for a night? Now, if you've got a song recorded, that makes that slightly easier, because you can send that to a promoter and you can say, this is our song. We think would fit this billing really well if you could have us on. Don't expect to get paid. You're going to lose money in all your initial gigs. This is just about getting your foot in the door. So expect to lose a few quid on each of these. Don't worry about printing t-shirts and merch and that straight away. Get proficient with your songs first. Get known to the local bands and promoters, and just be respectful, and the rest of that can come much later. So if you've networked already, that will be easier. One thing you don't do is to cold drop an email or message a page on Facebook or Instagram saying, I want a gig. You won't get gigs that way. You need to be seen. So identify the venues you'd like to play at, go to a few of their gigs, introduce yourself to the promoter or the venue owner. Sometimes they're different. Sometimes the gigs are run by promoters. Sometimes the venues book themselves. So you need to figure that out. and introduce yourself to the bands. Because if you become friendly with a band and they're looking for someone to open, you're going to get the slot. And then you can move on from there and you can do a number of gigs with those bands. So it's all about going out and actually finding the venues that are playing the types of music that you want to be involved with, and just moving forward that way. The one thing you shouldn't do is sit on a computer or your phone and just expect things to happen. You have to go outside to make this work. One bit of advice I would give: never pay to play, especially at the start, and never do those if you sell X amount of tickets you can play the gig thing, because those are just promoters who are too lazy to do the promotion themselves, and they want you to bring the crowd to pay the headliner most of the time. And what will happen is you end up playing to your friends and family that you've nagged to come along. That's not the audience you want. You want to play to music fans. You want to play to people who want to be there for music, not because they're trying to help you get a gig. So don't go for any of that. There's so many of those promoters out there. Just ignore it. There are many others who don't bother with that type of stuff, and those are the people you want to play with. So let's assume you've done everything right. You found your team of people that you can work with. You've got a set rehearsed. You've got half an hour worth of songs, and you've been asked to play your first gig. Turn up early on the day. Make sure you've got all the equipment that you need to bring. There's often gear share, which is usually a drum kit and guitar and bass cabs, and the microphones are usually provided. Find out what's happening with the gear share at least a week in advance of doing the show. Find out how long your set is at least a week in advance of the show, and go from there. One thing you don't want to do is turn up not knowing anything and trying to borrow stuff from people. It's considered rude and inappropriate in the business to do that. So just be aware that you need to get this stuff figured out in advance. In terms of the sound check, if you're there early, that's great. When you do the sound check, don't do it as a rehearsal. Play a full song at most, but what I would advise is to do maybe a chorus and a bit of a solo. Have something worked out for your sound check way in advance. Now, what I will say is that one thing you will struggle with to begin with is playing on stages, because as mad as that sounds, every stage sounds different and every sound engineer is very different. Some are good, some are terrible, some just don't want to be there, and you're going to have to work with it. And I've lost my temper with these people before. I've not been innocent in this regard, and I've made mistakes, but it is frustrating when it sounds like shit on stage, but you just have to work with it. And if you've been rehearsing really well, you know your set inside out anyway. You're not going to be so reliant on being able to hear every nuance. You know, it's not going to sound great when you're up there. It might sound great up front a lot of the time, and I played many gigs where it has sounded great up front, but on stage it's been bloody terrible. You just got to work with it. So just be prepared that what's coming out on the monitors may not be ideal, and you can do a great sound check, and as soon as you go to play, it will sound completely different again. So just be aware that that's the case. So, but if you turned up on time, you brought all the right equipment, you've done everything that you need to do, you've done your sound check, you can't be accused of doing it wrong. Try and be as respectful as possible to the promoter and the sound engineer, no matter how annoying they are. And again, I've been guilty of this myself. I've lost my rag, and it's natural, and it probably will happen to you as well. But try and go, right, it sounds like shit, but we've got to work through it. And just have that mentality and you'll be fine. It will, if it's your first gig ever, you've never played with a band before, it will be nerve-wracking, of course. Just focus on playing and doing your best. You don't have to worry about the crowd interaction. No one's expecting anything of you at that stage if you're an opening band. But if you play really well and it sounds good enough, people will respect you. They'll come up to you after your set and talk to you, and you can grow from there. And that's all it is. It's about learning at that stage. So get your first gigs under your belt and then worry about other stuff. But yeah, turn up on time, bring everything you need, make sure you're organized. Do not play piss, do not play high, do not risk the venue's license, don't risk your performance. Remember that it's so important to appear professional if that's what you want to do. As I said, I'm not telling you a way to make a career out of this, but you're not even going to get out of the gates if you turn up with that attitude. Now, my last bit of advice, and this isn't just about starting a band and getting things going. Now, one of the things you're going to experience from the music scene is a lot of bitterness and a lot of anger, and people are going to slate you, slag you off, and say horrible things about you and your music for no reason at all. Now, your band socials, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever you use, these are not democratic platforms. There's nothing wrong with you just deleting those comments, removing people who are toxic from those pages, and moving on, because you're there to promote your music. You're not there to debate with them whether or not they're right and you're wrong about anything. I mean, I've made that mistake in the past when I was younger. I would get into arguments with people on Facebook about various things, and it didn't do me any favors. And at the end of the day, the audience who like your music just don't care either. And if somebody doesn't like your music, they're never going to like your music. And if they're there just to cause upset or harm, that's the only thing they're interested in. So just flick them off your pages and move swiftly on. And if everyone did that, these people would be very quiet very quickly. And every scene has them. So just be aware. Don't let them bring you down. They might slag off your live performance. They're probably wrong. They probably didn't attend. Just ignore it. So with that being said, it's all about finding the right people, being able to work as a team, and being professional. If you put the time in, you practice on your own, you practice as a band, you work on your 5 or 6 songs to begin with, and you make that effort, you will succeed. You'll get those first gigs and things will start moving on from there. Avoid the people who are not going to show up, who are going to be interested in other things. You need people who are interested in working together as a band for a common goal of just playing a few gigs and maybe recording a few songs to begin with. Once you get over that hurdle, you can move on to the next stage. But it's important just to find the right people to begin with. Don't get too stressed out with things. This isn't a project that's going to immediately make you a millionaire. This isn't a religious event. You can be flexible. You can be as flexible as possible to make things work. So be willing to work with people, give and take. Obviously, if someone's being unreasonable on the other end, you don't have to respect that either. But find 4 or 5 people who you can work with and you can bond with, and everyone knows, right, we're going to learn this set, we're going to have fun with it, and we're here for the right reasons. And if you can do that, you will get out of the gates and your band will start. It might not be successful to begin with, but you just need to get a few gigs under your belt before the other opportunities will come. And then you can think about why we want to record a single or an EP or an album. You can do that along the lines. But my advice is get the guys you need, get the band together, rehearsing regularly once a week, 3 hours, get your half an hour set down, and then work towards your first few gigs. Once those gigs are underway and you're getting regular bookings and you have been connected to other bands in the scene, people are aware of who you are, then look at recording and maybe putting some merch together to sell. And from that point onwards, you'll grow. But the trick is not to run before you can walk with it. Don't expect too much from it. Don't expect to be making lots of money. The fact is that most bands aren't paid, even if they've been around for years and years. They're just not paid. There is no real money in music anymore. But that's not why we do it. We do it because we want to make great music and have fun. If that's at the heart of everything you do, you can't fail. Anyway, thank you for taking the time to watch this first video of me trying to teach some of my knowledge from being in this band for 17 years now. And I hope it's been useful to you. I'm not an expert in the sense that I've not made it. I'm not a successful musician, but I have kept a band going for 17 years, which is a success in itself. We have had 2 albums in the charts, so we must be doing something sort of right. I hope this advice proves useful to you. Thanks for checking out. Like, subscribe, all the other nonsense, and I hope to see you again soon.